The Silent Watchers. The Elysians had not known death for 12,000 years. Their gleaming cities, once bustling with innovation and passion, now stood as silent monuments to what they had lost in gaining immortality. Their silver-skinned bodies moved with fluid grace through crystal spires that pierced the emerald skies of Elysia Prime, but their luminous eyes had grown dim with the weight of endless existence. Commander Maya Chen pressed her hand against the viewport of the Horizon Seeker as the exploration vessel lurched violently through the atmospheric turbulence. The ship's systems blared warnings as the primary engine failed catastrophically. Full emergency landing protocols. She shouted over the cacophony of alarms. Brace for impact. The Horizon Seeker carved a burning trail across Elysia Prime's sky, its hull screaming in protest as it plummeted toward a vast plain of iridescent crystal. The impact shattered the landscape, sending fragments of crystal exploding outward like a frozen tsunami. When the dust settled, the ship lay partially buried, its systems flickering between life and death. Maya pulled herself from her harness, blood trickling from a gash on her forehead. "Status report," she called out, helping her navigation officer, Dr. Elijah Okonkwo, to his feet. 6 crew accounted for, Elijah responded, checking the ship's internal sensors. Taurus is unconscious but stable. Life support is functioning at minimal capacity. Communication array is destroyed. So we're stranded, Maya concluded, wiping blood from her eye, on an uncharted world with no way to call for help. What they didn't know was that they were being watched. The Elysians had detected the human vessel the moment it entered their system. They had been observing humanity's expansion across the stars for centuries, but had chosen to remain hidden, retreating deeper into their isolation as the younger race spread outward with their chaotic, vibrant energy. Aeon, one of the Elysian observers, stood motionless on a crystal promontory overlooking the crash site. His silver skin reflected the light of Elysia's 3 moons, making him appear as a living statue. He had volunteered to assess the threat these humans might pose, though volunteered was perhaps too strong a word. Nothing had truly been voluntary among the Elysians for millennia. They simply existed, following patterns established eons ago. They survived. He communicated telepathically to the Elysian conclave. They are remarkably resilient for such fragile beings. Observe but do not engage, came the collective response from the conclave, a group of elders who had guided the Elysians since before their transformation. They will perish soon enough. Their kind always does. But something about these humans stirred forgotten feelings in Aeon. Perhaps it was their desperate struggle to survive despite the certainty of their eventual death. Perhaps it was the way they moved with purpose and urgency, qualities long absent from Elysian existence. By the 3rd day after the crash, the human crew had established a perimeter around their vessel and begun salvage operations. Maya had organized exploration teams to scout the immediate area for resources, while Chief Engineer Hiroshi Tanaka worked to repair the communication array. "This place is incredible," Dr. Sofia Novak, the expedition's xenobiologist, remarked as she cataloged crystal samples. "These formations aren't natural. They're grown, engineered on a molecular level. Whoever built this world was thousands of years ahead of us technologically. But where are they?" Maya wondered aloud, scanning the horizon where massive structures loomed in the distance. A civilization this advanced doesn't just disappear. It was during the 4th night that first contact occurred. Lieutenant Diego Torres, having recovered from his injuries, was on perimeter watch when he spotted a shimmer of movement in the crystal forest that surrounded their crash site. "Hello," he called out, raising his illuminator. The beam caught a silver figure standing perfectly still among the crystal trees, eyes glowing with an inner light that seemed to penetrate his very soul. Torres's shout brought Maya and the others running. They stared in awe at the alien being, who regarded them with an expression that seemed to blend curiosity with profound sadness. "I am Aeon," the being spoke, its voice resonating directly in their minds. "You are trespassing on Elysian territory. Maya stepped forward cautiously. "Commander Maya Chen of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon Seeker. We mean no harm. Our ship crashed, and we're stranded." "I know what happened," Aeon replied. "We have been watching you. Your kind fascinates us. You expend so much energy despite knowing your lives are but a fleeting moment in cosmic time." The meeting between Maya's crew and Aeon marked the beginning of a tenuous relationship. The Elysian Conclave, learning of Aeon's disobedience, demanded the humans be isolated and studied from afar, but Aeon disagreed. He began visiting the crash site regularly, bringing with him knowledge of Elysia Prime, and more importantly, asking questions about Earth and humanity. "Why do you create art that will outlast you?" he asked Diego, who had taken to sketching the alien landscapes during off-duty hours. "Why build things that will remain when you are gone?" Diego pondered this as he shaded the crystal spires on his paper. "Maybe because we want to leave something behind. A mark that says, 'We were here.' Or maybe it's simpler than that. We create because it fulfills something in us." These conversations puzzled and intrigued Aeon, who had not experienced the drive to create in thousands of years. The Elysians had once been master artisans, scientists, and philosophers, but eternal life had gradually eroded their passion. Why strive today when there was always tomorrow, and the next day, and millions of days thereafter? As Aeon shared Elysian knowledge with the humans, engineer Tanaka made a breakthrough in understanding their technology. "They've harnessed quantum entanglement at a level we've only theorized about," he explained excitedly to Maya. "Their entire civilization is built on the manipulation of space-time itself. Can that help us repair our ship?" Maya asked, the practical concern of survival foremost in her mind. "Possibly," Tanaka replied. "But there's something else, something bigger." According to Aeon, the Elysians used this technology to achieve immortality. They literally stepped outside the normal flow of time. The revelation stunned the human crew. Immortality, the dream of countless generations, had been achieved by the Elysians, yet their civilization seemed hollow, lacking the vibrancy that defined humanity despite its brevity. It was Dr. Novak who articulated what they were all thinking. They've lost their purpose. Without the pressure of limited time, they've lost the urgency that drives innovation, art, love, everything that makes life meaningful. As the humans learned more about Elysian society, they discovered the deep divide that had formed over millennia. Most Elysians existed in a state of passive observation, their immortal minds struggling with the weight of accumulated memories. Some, like Aeon, questioned whether their transformation had been wisdom or folly. The Elysian Conclave grew increasingly concerned about the humans' influence. Meridian, the eldest of the Conclave, summoned Aeon to the Citadel of Eternity, a vast structure that housed the quantum nexus, the heart of Elysian immortality. "These humans corrupt you with their primitive perspectives," Meridian admonished, his ancient presence filling the chamber. "They cannot comprehend the peace we have achieved. Their lives are defined by struggle precisely because they end. Is it peace we have achieved, or stagnation?" Aeon countered, surprising himself with the passion in his thoughts. "I have observed more life in their brief days here than I have witnessed among our kind in centuries." As the debate between Aeon and the Conclave intensified, Maya and her crew made a discovery that would change everything. Deep in the crystal forests, they found an abandoned Elysian laboratory containing records of the transformation process that had granted the aliens their immortality. According to these records, Dr. Novak translated with Aeon's reluctant help, the process is reversible. The Elysians could choose to rejoin the normal flow of time, to become mortal again. The knowledge was explosive. When word reached the Conclave, Meridian immediately ordered the humans confined and Aeon detained for rehabilitation. But it was too late. The question had been asked, and for the first time in millennia, the Elysians began to wonder if their endless existence was truly the paradise they had believed it to be. The gift of mortality. The crystalline prison that held Maya and her crew refracted light in dazzling patterns across the walls. beautiful but unyielding. 3 days had passed since their confinement by Meridian's order, and with each passing hour, their hopes of returning to Earth dimmed. "They're afraid of us," Elijah observed as he paced the perimeter of their cell. "Not of our weapons or technology, but of our ideas." Maya nodded, watching the silent Elysian guards positioned outside. "We represent everything they've lost: passion, urgency, the drive to overcome limitations. We remind them of what they used to be." Meanwhile, across the city in the Chamber of Contemplation, Aeon faced judgment before the conclave. His silver skin had dulled from the stress of confinement, and his thoughts were clouded with doubt. Had he betrayed his people by helping the humans, or had he finally seen the truth about what the Elysians had become? "You have allowed these transient beings to poison your perspective." Meridian's thoughts resonated with disapproval. "Their primitive fixation on mortality blinds them to the transcendence we have achieved." "Is it transcendence if we no longer grow?" Aeon challenged. "Is it evolution if we no longer adapt?" "The humans create, explore, and connect with an intensity we have forgotten. They live more in their brief decades than we have in millennia." The debate sent ripples through the collective consciousness of the Elysians. For many, it was the first new idea they had encountered in centuries. Some dismissed it immediately, but others began to question, to remember what it had felt like to create with urgency, to love with the knowledge that time was precious. Lyra, a scientist from before the transformation, approached the conclave chamber, her luminous eyes brighter than they had been in ages. "I wish to speak," she announced, breaking protocol that had remained unchanged for thousands of years. "The humans have awakened something in us," Lyra continued when granted permission. "I have begun to create again. For the first time since the transformation, I feel purpose." She was not alone. Throughout the city, Elysians were emerging from their state of passive existence. Some returned to abandoned laboratories, others to studios and workshops. The presence of beings who measured their lives in decades rather than millennia had reminded them of what it meant to value time. As dissent grew among the Elysians, Aeon was approached by Iris, a young guard assigned to the human prison. "The humans speak of a concept called legacy," she communicated. "They create not just for themselves, but for those who will come after. They find meaning in continuation beyond their individual existence." This concept resonated deeply with Aeon. The Elysians had abandoned legacy when they abandoned death. With infinite time, why concern oneself with what remains? But in doing so, they had lost their connection to the future, to the idea that something of themselves might influence generations to come. With Iris's help, Aeon escaped confinement and freed the human crew. Together, they developed a plan that would change both species forever. The quantum nexus, the technological marvel that sustained Elysian immortality, occupied the heart of the citadel of eternity. It pulsed with energy drawn from the fabric of reality itself, bending the laws of physics to hold the Elysians outside the normal flow of time. "We don't need to destroy it," Dr. Novak explained as they approached the heavily guarded chamber. "We just need to give them a choice." Chief Engineer Tanaka had worked with Aeon and Lyra to modify the Nexus controls. "It's an elegant solution," he admitted. "The system can be reconfigured to allow each individual Elysian to choose, remain immortal or rejoin the normal temporal flow." The confrontation at the Nexus brought the philosophical divide among the Elysians into stark relief. Meridian and the conservative faction of the Conclave stood in opposition, while a growing number of Elysians, led by Aeon and Lyra, supported the humans. "You would throw away eons of advancement," Meridian accused, his form seeming to grow larger with indignation. "Return us to the primitive state of countdown and decay." "We would restore choice," Aeon countered. "We achieved immortality to transcend limitations, yet we have imposed the greatest limitation of all: stagnation." The debate might have continued indefinitely. The Elysians had, after all, infinite time. But Maya stepped forward, her mortal presence a reminder of the urgency that had once driven Elysian innovation. "You speak of our lives as limited because they end, she addressed Meridian directly. But it is precisely that ending that gives each moment value. My civilization creates wonders despite knowing we won't see their completion. We love fiercely despite knowing we will lose those we love. We explore despite knowing we will never see all there is to see. Her words resonated through the chamber, touching minds that had not considered new perspectives in millennia. Mortality isn't a limitation to transcend, she continued. It's the framework that gives meaning to existence. In that moment of connection, something remarkable happened. Meridian, who had lived longer than any other Elysian, who had championed immortality as the species' greatest achievement, grew silent. In Maya's words, he recognized an echo of debates from before the transformation, questions that had been set aside but never truly answered. Perhaps, he finally communicated, his thought voice softer than before, we should reconsider what it means to evolve. The modification of the quantum nexus proceeded. When completed, it hummed with new purpose, offering each Elysian a genuine choice for the first time in 12,000 years. Some chose to remain immortal, seeing value in eternal observation and contemplation. Others, led by Aeon and Lyra, chose to rejoin the flow of time, accepting mortality as the price of renewed purpose. As the transformation spread through Elysian society, something unexpected occurred. Those who chose mortality began to create with renewed passion. Art, music, and scientific inquiry flourished as they hadn't since before the species stepped outside of time. The knowledge that their days were now numbered gave each moment precious significance. The human crew of the Horizon Seeker, with the help of their new Elysian allies, repaired their vessel using technology that would revolutionize human understanding of quantum physics. As they prepared to depart, carrying with them gifts of knowledge and cultural exchange, Maya stood with Aeon on the crystal promontory where he had first observed their crash. "Will you be all right?" she asked, noting how his silver skin now held a warmth that had lacked before, subtle signs of aging already beginning to show. "For the first time in millennia, I do not know what the future holds," Aeon replied, his eyes bright with anticipation rather than the sad wisdom of eternity. "That uncertainty is the greatest gift your kind has given us." The Horizon Seeker departed Elysia Prime carrying more than scientific discoveries. It carried the story of a species that had achieved perfect immortality only to discover that life without limits was no life at all, and of how humanity, with all its flaws and brevity, had reminded them of what it meant to truly live. As word spread throughout human space of the Elysian civilization, philosophers debated whether immortality was truly desirable. Scientists marveled at the technology that made it possible. But perhaps the most profound impact came in how humans viewed their own mortality. The knowledge that a species had achieved eternal life only to find it empty gave new meaning to the human condition. The pressure of limited time that had always defined humanity was reconsidered not as a burden to overcome, but as the very force that drove human achievement. On Elysia Prime, a new generation of Elysians was born, the first children the planet had seen in 12,000 years. They grew up hearing stories of both the age of immortality and the humans who had helped their species remember the value of finite existence. They inherited the best of both worlds, the advanced knowledge of their immortal ancestors and the passionate urgency of their mortal parents. In choosing mortality, the Elysians had not stepped backward but forward into a new era of growth and purpose. And in helping them make that choice, humanity had reaffirmed its own unique strength, the ability to find meaning not despite death, but because of it. In the vast expanse of the cosmos, where civilizations rise and fall like tides on a cosmic shore, the alliance between humans and Elysians stood as testimony to a universal truth. It is not how long we exist that matters, but how fully we live in the time we have. The universe, after all, had time enough for everything, except, perhaps, for waiting.